You have to be blown around and have some hardships to get strong. And so if you keep your child too protected from any kind of physical, emotional pain, social pain for too long, they can just be blown over by really little things. And so I think the tendency is to overprotect, and we need to really fight back against that in order to make sure our kids don't become so fragile that the slightest breeze when they're, in high school, college, just flattens them. Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Parenting Podcast, where each week we talk about ideas for raising kids who become thriving adults. I'm your host, Audrey Monkey. I'm a summer camp director, writer, and speaker, and I've had the privilege of working with thousands of children, teenagers, young adult counselors, and parents over the past 3 decades. My husband, Steve, and I are raising 5 kids who currently range in age from 15 to 25. So my interest in raising kind, optimistic, self-reliant kids who become thriving adults is personal as well as professional. This episode of the podcast was recorded live at Pegasus School in Huntington Beach. I recorded with my frequent guest, Sara Kuljis, and we talked about my upcoming book, Happy Campers. Specifically, we discussed camp secret number 5, Grit is grown outside the comfort zone. All right. Welcome to this episode of the Sunshine Parenting Podcast. We are so excited. I'm here with my regular co-host, Sara Kuljis, and we are recording live at Pegasus School in Huntington Beach. This is a special day because even though Happy Campers, my new book, doesn't go on sale officially until May 7th, when my publisher heard that I was speaking here today, they rushed some copies to Branches Books and Gifts in Oakhurst. And so this is actually the only opportunity before May 7th to get a copy of the book. So I'm really excited to see. Actually, I saw the book for the first time yesterday, and I'm going to be signing them today, which is really kind of fun. I've never gotten a chance to do that, so I'm really excited about that. So Sara, thank you so much for interviewing me today and for joining me for this episode of the podcast. It's really fun to be with you again.
My pleasure. And it's fun to see the fruit of so much labor. Audrey, this book is just packed full with so many awesome parenting tools drawn from the camp environment. So I hope you all really enjoy it and really, glean some important things from it. First of all, Audrey, I'd like to ask you, as a parent, as a camp director, as a youth development professional, what led you to write a book?
Great question. I think there's a couple books, like several years ago. I'm 52 now, so older than most of the parents here.
I'm older than that.
We don't have to share everything. I feel like all of us kind of go through life, and like the first part of your life, you're kind of figuring things out. Maybe you have a career and you start learning things, and you have things you're really curious about and you learn about. And the second half is all about sharing and giving back what you've learned. And I feel like I hit that stage a couple years ago where I started finding myself talking to camp parents a lot more about what was going on with their kids at home, maybe things that they could try that we do at camp that could make their kids feel better at home and happier. And I started my website, Sunshine Parenting, in 2012 and started sharing just little tidbits, mostly from things that we would train counselors on at camp. So Sara, you and I both do this. We have to train 19 to 22-year-olds in a week to 10 days in how to be better with kids than parents are. Because, as you know, you have a much higher standard for when other people are working with your kids.
It's true.
It's true. You wouldn't, as a parent, you can be on your phone, and you're with them all the time, so you can do whatever you want. But when you have a babysitter, you don't want that babysitter distracted, not listening, not paying attention to kids. And certainly they can't get angry or, yell or anything like that. So I found that a lot of the trainings that we did with our counselors about just basic kind of positive behavior management techniques,
friendship skills,
yes, all that stuff was really applicable to parents, and especially parents who never had the opportunity to be camp counselors. And I know that sounds weird. Obviously, we really believe in summer camp. I believe in it even more for the counselors as a great experience, because that experience of having to lead a group, manage kids, learn how to speak and lead positively, learn how to manage conflicts, clean up, throw up. These are skills that are really, really beneficial when you do become a parent at some point later in life. And so I ended up just writing little things about what we teach our counselors that I thought parents could benefit from too. And I started that years ago, and for the first probably 3 years, my sister and my mom read it. And I had a really big fan club. They would respond about things they liked and stuff. And then it just started picking up, and I ended up, it's so fun now at camp. A lot of our camp parents read the blog or listen to the podcast, and it really feels good to be able to just share a little bit of something that just might make somebody's day, week, year just that much better. That's why I do all of this.
I love that. Well, in this book, Audrey, and she brings in some of her colleagues and cronies as well, share 9 summer camp secrets, 9 ways that we at camp help grow kids. And some of my favorite chapters are Catch 'em Doing Something Right. And kids are more capable than we parents think they are. Loved those 2 chapters a lot. But why today are we focusing on the chapter of grit is grown outside the comfort zone?
Well, it was hard to pick, but I think that as parents, this is perhaps one of the hardest things to do. We have it a lot easier when we have your kids without you, because kids tend to be more courageous and try more things when parents aren't sitting right there. And this is true for my own kids and your kids and everybody's kids. When your parent is there, you still kind of as a parent see your child sort of as the baby they once were. And so when they're about to try something that's a little bit scary, like, oh my gosh, I remember sitting out here with the spelling bee going on stage. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so scary, watching my little second grader up there on stage. They look at your facial expression and they immediately feel, it's like the mirror neurons are happening. Even if you're trying to smile and look relaxed, your kid will sense, oh my gosh, mom or dad really is nervous right now. They don't think I can do this. And you can't even help yourself as a parent, honestly. And so it's something that we're really fortunate to see a ton of growth in this area at camp. And one of the reasons is because we get to have these kids in an environment where they're suddenly feeling like, okay, maybe I can try this. And they're not going to look around and see anyone who's the nervous, still sees them as a 5-year-old, wondering if they can do that. But kids are not at camp for very long. Kids are at camp for maybe a week or 2 of the year. The rest of the time they're with parents, and we must learn how to help them become resilient human beings, even when they're near us. And it's really, really important. And we're seeing sort of a lot of the results of kids who aren't growing that kind of resilience. It comes out when they're teenagers, young adults, as serious mental health issues, because they don't feel that they have the capacity to bounce back from the normal setbacks and problems of life. And so it's just really important that beginning at a very young age, we give our kids opportunities to feel discomfort, to kind of edge their comfort zone bigger and bigger as they get older. And so it's just a really critical thing. And I think it's really important, especially for people with younger kids, to start thinking about this early. How can we just continue to just each year get my kid a little grittier? And knowing that some kids too, they start this big of a comfort zone. I've had one of those. I know you have.
I have one of those.
Where every new thing is torture, trying to get them to, going to a new school, trying out for a team. Everything is just so uncomfortable for them. And you actually get better when you have a kid like that, because they have to do things in life. They have to do new things. So kids like that almost naturally grow their comfort zone bigger. But it's actually some of the kids who are so comfortable and have a big comfort zone that need a little more.
They do. And we can really be thoughtful about that with even little tiny kids all the way up, as if you think of grit as a muscle, You don't start lifting 400 pounds the first time you go to the gym, right? I still don't lift 400 pounds at the gym. But you start small. And my 4-year-old and my 8-year-old and my 13-year-old, little by little, they are, bumping up their weight on their bench press. And it's fun to think of those little ways that even our little tiny humans can be starting to grow their grit muscle. We use the term muscle all the time when we talk about grit, because it really is that. And when in time you're sending your big human off to college, hopefully he or she has some good muscle. And that freshman year, while a little overwhelming, isn't so overwhelming, because they have practiced folding their clothes and doing their laundry, and they have had to go back to a teacher and advocate for themselves. They have had to suffer through a grade that really was disappointing without someone going back and convincing the teacher for a different grade. They've had to make a new friend. They've had to say, I'm sorry to a friend. All those little grit muscle growth opportunities are essential.
Yeah, so I first heard the term grit from, have any of you read Paul Tuff's book, How Children Succeed? It's a really great book.
Please read that book.
It's really good. I think it came out in 2011, and it was the first time that I had really heard the term. And basically, he did a bunch of studies of both kids from more affluent private schools and the KIPP Academy, which was like inner city kids. And the trait that they found that was most predictive of successfully completing college was grit or resilience. So more so than test scores, grades, anything. So it's a really important trait. And when you think about it, I feel like I thought of that as being a hard worker when I was growing up, was just being able to stick with things, study hard when something doesn't come easily. I think that's how we used to refer to it more. But it's a really important trait in all areas of life, not just school, but relationships, careers. I mean, it takes grit to get through life successfully. And so that's why I think this is a fun topic to cover today. It became really popular as a term when Angela Duckworth's TED Talk and book came out a few years ago. And so I know it's kind of, I don't know if it's being overused. You can use the word resilient or persistent or hardworking. And I think
we sometimes use the word bounce.
Bounce, yeah.
Bouncing back from a mistake or a failure.
Yeah, so it's just a trait that I think is one that sometimes parents don't think to focus on as much as some of the other things. So that's why I thought it would be fun to talk about today.
I love that.
Yeah.
In your book, you have this phrase about the consequences of either diminishing or delaying grit building opportunities for our kids. And I thought, wow, diminishing or delaying. What compels me as a parent to diminish, lessen, or delay these natural and important opportunities for my children to get their bounce? And can you talk a little bit more about maybe why we as parents diminish or delay those opportunities?
Well, I think it's just what I was talking about before. You just, as a parent, it's like we were made to just be like, we're going to protect this little person for their whole life. Like you see them and you just want to keep them safe. And I mean, it's natural. I mean, that is our job. That's why, I don't know, that's just what parents are. So your natural inclination is always to protect your kids. And that is a good thing, to keep them safe. I mean, they're helpless when they're born and for a while afterwards. And so that's our natural inclination as parents, is to protect them. If we keep protecting them too long, though, and too much, we make them fragile. And just before we were talking, Jason Lopez, your great headmaster, is so awesome. He was telling me about your speaker that talked about the palm tree in the fall talk. And I love that analogy. And I'm like, it's in my head now. You have to be blown around and have some hardships to get strong. And so if you keep your child too protected from any kind of physical, emotional pain, social pain for too long, they can just be blown over by really little things. And so I think the tendency is to overprotect, and we need to really fight back against that in order to make sure our kids don't become so fragile that the slightest breeze when they're, in high school, college, just flattens them. And so I think that's part of, kids, I don't know if you guys know this, like when you were little, and you guys are younger than I am, but I was babysitting other kids when I was 11 years old.
Mm-hmm, right.
Okay. So I remember one time someone down the street had a 2-year-old and a 3-week-old infant. And I was 11 years old and I walked down the street to babysit for these two children. Okay, so...
And you were great.
I was really nervous, but I was... But anyway, that was a whole different era of parenting, wasn't it? And now we have people... We hire babysitters sometimes for like, I don't even know how old, 15-year-old? I don't know how old it's getting now, but... So, and obviously it's an interesting, when you think about what you used to do at different ages, that should really give you confidence to know that your kids can probably be doing more than what you think they can now. Because I bet, just given, genetics and whatever, they're probably even smarter and better than you were at that age anyway, right? So you can give them a lot more responsibility than what you think you can. And so I think that we sometimes just also have this feeling that we want our kids to stay small. And I know that sounds weird because a lot of times parents are like, oh, this is so hard, and it takes forever to grow up, but it doesn't take forever to grow up. It goes really fast overall. And you have a sense of loss when your kids don't need you anymore. You have to acknowledge that ambivalence, that it's kind of a bad feeling in one way as a parent. And I think that's one of the things I write about in the book is I have that too. I knew from all of my research and from camp that I needed my kids to be independent and be able to do big adventures and do things without me with them. And yet every single time, even now, when I drop one of my kids off at the airport to go to a job, I have one in DC right now, and I'm like, okay, bye, and tears, and I'm like, oh man, I just wish they were all at home, like under one roof, And so I think part of it too as parents is just really acknowledging that, yes, you want your kids to be independent, successful, all that stuff, and you kind of like having them with you and calling you all the time, because it feels good to have your kid call you all the time and really need you a lot. That kind of boosts something in you.
Yeah. Years ago, a very wise friend described a philosophy of parenting that I've really hung on to. He said, when your kids are small, you're a caretaker. But then you transition to being their coach. Mm-hmm. And ultimately you transition, hopefully, to being their consultant.
Yeah.
And I really have chewed on that. And it's been interesting and fun, actually, to see the transition happening with my kids at different ages. So, yeah, when they're small and you're a caretaker, you're covering every base, right? Mm-hmm. But then, at 10, 11, 12, they should be able to make a hot breakfast for themselves. And then my son called from Manhattan, and he was in charge of the main entree for the St. Patrick's Day party on the dorm floor. And he wasn't calling me to ask where he should get takeout. He called to check on a recipe, and I was a consultant for my 19-year-old who was making food for the floor. That has really strengthened me to be able to say, is this a time I'm caretaking? This illness, this friendship, this food, this school project. Mm-hmm. And now where am I coaching? Yeah, and you almost had that. That was really great. Try this as well, like a good coach with good feedback. And then as young adults, what an honor that they would check in and say, hey, what do you think about this? I'd like mom and dad's advice. So sometimes that's a way to kind of position ourselves, as we are changing our role with them. And then I move from a kind of turning in my loss of them not being that cute little muffin that I used to kiss and squeeze, and instead having the joy of them being a young adult that I really like, that I'm really proud of. And there are a lot of bumps along the way, right? Yeah. Messy bumps, but that's the bounce.
Yeah. Totally. And I think too, you also go back into caretaking mode sometimes. I was thinking about when I had my babies and my mom would come and feed me, you can still you kind of drift in and out of those things. And that's good too. That's a great parental thought too, is that they get older and you're doing less of the caretaking, more of the coaching, and then sort of that consultant thing. But you can still, as needed, drift back in. And then guess what happens? We get old, and guess what they become for us? I don't know if any of you are in that stage, but we both are.
We are.
and things shift, and one day, hopefully they will be reciprocating all that great care that we gave to them back on that.
Yep. You describe in the book helping guide, coach kids through challenging experiences of all kinds. And you talk about how you don't jump in to rescue. I loved the word rescue. Sometimes it feels at 12 or 14 or even at 5. It's my job to rescue. And sometimes it is, and then sometimes it's not. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Jumping into rescue-ness that we as parents feel.
Yeah. I think this again goes back to, are we getting our own reinforcement from our role with our kids, or are we parenting our kids in the best way possible? So I think it's very tempting when something goes wrong. I'll give the example of, probably never happens to you, but another kid says something mean to your kid, okay? And you just like, no one talks to my child that way. And you like get that cape out and you tie it around and you're ready to go. Who are you going to go get? Am I going to go get that little second grader who just said this thing? Am I going to go to the teacher? Am I going to march into the office, get on the phone? I got to talk to someone about this mean comment that someone said to my kid. That is, again, a natural caretaking reaction. But it's really important. It's so great. You can watch your kid when you do this for them. You can watch them grow. If your kid comes to you and they're in second grade and someone, I don't even know, like 2 of my kids have ears that stick out really far. And so
they're really cute.
I love them, but anyway. So there was occasionally in elementary school where kids really, it's called them elves. I mean, not very nice, right? So instead of, I want them to be able to respond on their own. So when they would come to me and say, and they're little, and oh, this kid, I was by the drinking fountain, and this kid called me an elf. So you say, wow, that probably really hurt your feelings. That wasn't very kind. What do you think would make someone say something unkind like that? And you turn it around where they're not a victim. This other child kind of lacks social skills, maybe doesn't know how to connect, had a bad day. Someone's been picking on them. They're now picking on you. So you don't make your child, it's not all about them and that they are this victim of this meanness. So it's that first reaction is, wow, that sounds really hard. That must feel really bad when someone says something mean. And then the next thing is, what could you say or do next time that happens? And then your kid maybe comes up with some ideas. And if they can't, you could suggest some things like you could say, well, at work, sometimes people say kind of rude comments and I just kind of nod my head and walk away and just try to ignore it. Or, you can feed them some ideas of how to respond. But then you always want to say, you know what? I'm really proud of you. I know you can handle this. I know you can deal with this. And you're looking at your small little child and they're thinking, well, maybe I can handle this. I don't need mom or dad to jump in and come talk to this kid. Because as we all know, when your mom or dad does step in or talk to the teacher, it doesn't usually work out very well for you or in the situation. The other thing that I think Sarah would agree on is it's never as clear as it looks as a parent. And this is true when you're looking at your own kids, siblings, and with your kids and their friends. Because we have a little bit of a bias. I don't know if you're aware of this, but you think your own child would never be the one calling another child an elf at the drinking fountain, right? Your child would never do that. So it always seems like it's my child, this wonderful, kind, always, perfect person. And then there's these other kids out there where that's not life. We all have our moments and all of our kids have the capacity when their feelings are hurt, when they're feeling left out, to say something or do something that's not kind. And I just think that we can do so much for our kids and build their social resilience and grit by letting them know that it is normal to have people do rude things. It happens every day. Someone steps in front of you in line. Someone accidentally throws their pencil and it lands on your desk. Someone knocks your book. These things happen every day in life. Rude things, mean comments. Someone's having a bad day. They make a mean comment to you. This is part of life. And so if, when your kids are really young, you can empower them and give them the confidence that they have strategies to deal with it, that's the kind of resilience that you really want your kids to have. Because when you think about life and just all the incidents that you can probably think of in your own life, it's usually not about you. It's about whatever that other person, when they're cutting you off in traffic, when all these things are going wrong, when you're at a store and the person's really rude to you, it's probably something that happened before you were even there, but they take it out on you. So I want to just spread that message that when you tell your kid, I have confidence in you. You can handle this situation. Starting at a really young age, they rise to the occasion. Mm-hmm. They do.
We often ask each other the question, what do you think is the other side of the story? Right? What's the rest that we don't know? And it kind of gives us a chance to catch our breath and think, yeah, maybe they were racing to the hospital because, there was an injury and that's why they cut me off. I'm just building that bit of empathy for the other side, I think, is helpful. And when we don't crumble, when our kids go through hard stuff, and when we don't panic and rush and rescue, unless it's, physical danger, come on, like the big stuff. When we don't panic, it teaches our kids that they can handle it too. When mom falls apart, then this is a bigger deal. Mm-hmm. So just modeling our confidence and our peace and our trust in each other and in good decisions and in the timing of things, it kind of, they borrow our courage. Right. And borrowing courage until you have your own is a pretty groovy tool to have. Right. And sometimes as a parent, especially, when something that was really anxiety producing when my kids were little or big, sometimes I really have had to reach out to a friend, a peer, a colleague, and borrow their courage until I can get my feet under me. Because we're just all human and we all need to help each other raise our kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't believe too, like when you think about how much you need other people like your friends. And I always would say, make sure you have friends who you like the way their kids are turning out, who have kids a little older than yours. That was always a good trick of mine. I'd be like, okay, your kids seem pretty good. What are you doing? It's good to always, and not feel isolated. The other thing that is really valuable is if you can remember your own stories from when you were their age of something that happened. You didn't get invited to a birthday party, or, you fell on the playground and got embarrassed, or I don't know, just if you can share your own stories and your kid can go, wow, look at that. You mean that happened to Daddy when he was little? And look at him now. He's so big and strong. So that's the other thing. I think our kids need to see us as authentic, real people who had these same kinds of things happen to us, because it's very reassuring to them to know that we didn't just pop out as these adults who knew how to scramble eggs and do things. We actually had a time where, we did things wrong. Like I remember when I was 6, my mom got her appendix out and I was trying to help. And I put it was like a plastic coffee thing. I put it on the stove and started a fire in the kitchen. Trying to be helpful, wasn't super helpful. So my mom with her appendix, anyway, it all turned out okay. But it was, you have to tell these stories about how you weren't always as confident socially, as capable as you are now. And kids love, oh my gosh, if you start telling them stories from your childhood, they'll be like, tell me another story about one of your mess ups or your worst grade you ever got or whatever. Those kind of stories are so good.
I think the last thing I would add to this is sometimes and my husband's good at, he's pretty gentle about it, calling me on things and saying, Sarah, is this about you or is this about Nick or Jake or Sasha?
Yeah.
Sometimes our kids do things that embarrass us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
My kid bit who at kindergarten?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys, I felt like that made me look bad.
Uh-huh.
And so I wanted to scramble and cover for it. Mm-hmm. And, I had to remember that I'm a parent doing my darndest too. Mm-hmm. And it's not about my pride and my embarrassment. I needed to say, what's the best thing I can do for this little boy who's learning what to do with his frustration? Mm-hmm. And we worked with his kindergarten teacher, and I don't think he's bitten anybody in a really long time.
Now that he's in college.
Now that he's 21. Let's hope he has not done that. But I was really sometimes surprised when I look in the mirror and realize, oh, I'm embarrassed. This is about me. And then I know I have some work I need to do, because I need to let him grow up like any other little guy trying to find his way. And I need to coach him or caretake him in the way that is going to best set him up for success.
Yeah. So you're building your resilience while you're building your
all
kids.
the time, aren't
too.
we, you guys?
Yes.
Aren't you building your parent muscle every day?
Yeah. That is a big one. I think it is one of the things that we can both very much appreciate as camp directors is, we have to sometimes make phone calls about children who have some behavioral challenges of some sort. And there's nothing better than the parent that we call that says, oh no, oh well, when this has happened before, this is what we do. This is, this is something that can be helpful. Yes, for sure. Do this, try this. The worst is you call the parent and they're like, well, what did the other children do? because my child, doesn't do anything unless aggravated. I'm like, yeah, you know what? That is life. Other kids will aggravate you. So you have to figure out your own response and everything else. So I do think it takes some humility as a parent to kind of help our kids through these things, but just know that everybody else has the same things going on, and we all have these same, kind of thoughts about it. So we have this thing, and I just want to quickly cover. So you kind of talked about this, and I think it's the same idea, is when you think about anything you're teaching your children, whether it's and grit, you grow from trying new things, right? So when you're doing something new, I think about teaching kids to drive. You wouldn't just stick your kid in the car and say, okay, have fun, which is some of the ways that we're sending kids off to college now. Is we, keep them home, take care of everything, help them with their college applications, help them with a lot more than that sometimes. And then we fly them across the country, drop them off and say, look, you're independent. That's sort of the model that a lot of people are using right now. And it's not working for kids because they're not having the gradual, the easing of the more responsibility, more independence as they get older kind of thing. So this model of first you do it for them. They're babies, they're little children, you're cutting up their food for them, you're helping them with it. Then second, you do it with them. You're showing them you're doing it together, kind of side by side. Then you're watching them and helping them do it. And then finally, they're doing it independently. And you can think about that with anything from driving to social stuff to new sports that you're teaching, riding a bike. It's the same idea, So I think that's a good model to think about, regardless of your child's age or what it is you're trying to teach them. But that is how you keep growing their new experiences and helping them learn new things where they're getting your support, but they get to the point where they don't need your support anymore. They can do it by themselves.
I would also like to jump. This book is so full of these practical things that we can do in little and big ways at home. And I just want to make sure that we get to touch on that because that's just a huge gift of this book. Audrey, can we jump to a couple, maybe each of us share one groovy grit building tool that we use in each of our homes or something that you've mentioned in the book to just have that be part of our family culture?
Sure. Well, first of all, about the book, each chapter ends with 5 specific things you can try to build whatever the skill or character trait is. The first one is one simple thing, and it doesn't even require any buy-in from your co-parent or anyone else. It's just something you can do. The second thing is called the sticky note solution. I love sticky notes, and I find that they're really an easy strategy as a parent to save your voice and your nagging and a lot of other things. They can be used to give your child a little positive boost by putting a sticky note on their bathroom window. It can be a sticky note on the door to the garage, reminding them about their sports equipment. So many uses of sticky notes. So the second one's a sticky note. The third one's around the campfire, and it's kind of a family conversation. And then the deeper dive, and there's one I forgot. Oh, make it fun.
Make it fun.
Because at camp, that's one of the things, we have to make everything fun, even putting sunscreen on. So we've mastered the art of making mundane things fun. And when you make mundane things fun at home, that just creates a really fun culture. So anyway, so thanks for mentioning that. So yeah, there's these strategies. So if you're not a reader and you just want to, for example, focus on kindness, you can just go to the end of the kindness chapter and flip through and just pull a sticky note out or whatever. So anyway, and then today also we're giving you these sticky note books if you buy a book and a little book note. So it's kind of fun. So in the book, and one of my favorite strategies, and we use this at camp, and I've used it at home and for myself, is setting goals is a great grit building idea. And it's something that you can do as a family. You can all set a goal of something new you're going to try, perhaps. As a parent, you can say, I've always wanted to play guitar. Or, you can model for your child that you're setting a goal and you're going to actually work towards it, and they're going to see you doing that. And I think a lot of times our kids, I know for a fact, my kids have learned much more from watching me do things than from me telling them to do something. So with most of these activities, I really think a lot of it can come from either doing things as a whole family where you all do it together, or even you just showing your kids. I've seen with my adult children things that they do just because they saw me do it, not because I made them do it. And I think that's pretty amazing to look back and, and see, wow, they just saw me doing that and they saw that that's what an adult human does. And so I'm going to try that too. Another thing that I really like is the idea of like a courage box. So like say you each have something that you're scared of, that you're going to try new in this year or this summer or this season, and everyone do it, parents and kids. I like that. And then you can like pull them out, like how are we doing on our trying our things we're scared of? And those can be, they don't have to be like high risk sports. They can be like smiling and saying hello to someone at the store, or for a shy kid checking out and doing the change at the market, or ordering their own food at a restaurant. It can be their own comfort zone pushing things. But I like this idea of really celebrating courage and saying to your kids, wow, that was awesome. I know you've never done that before and you just really did it great. And I'm so proud of you for trying that. So I think it's just that celebrating courage, I think is good. How about you? What are your ideas for grit growing activities?
One of my favorites has been when we would read stories with the kids when they were young, or when you watch a movie, some television show, and take a moment, pause the show or to pause in the middle of the chapter and say, wow, when we were reading Peter and the Starcatchers to our kids, that really took a lot for Peter to go back and do this brave thing. And to say, what do you think he was feeling when he did that brave thing? What qualities? I didn't use the word qualities, they were too little. What was in him that helped him do that brave thing? And have even a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old name what Peter did. Wow, do you think you could do that? What would it feel like? How would you be strong enough to do that? And really, kind of start helping them see when others are bouncing, when others are stepping outside their comfort zone and what it took from them, and then being able to giggle about the mistakes and realize they can come back from it, or marvel in the successes. So I really like those conversations. And now to do it with young adults around the table at Christmas, wow, that was really hard to, fail out of that university, and now your friend has chosen to apply to this university. What do you think she feels like going to a fresh start? And so that 7-year-old is now reflecting like a 21-year-old, and that's been a great kind of habit to develop. I think, too, one more thing is sometimes out of our comfort zone means trying something new. And we do this at camp, and we've done it at home, is take the heat out of having to be an expert the first time you try something. We don't always just try a new sport to be on varsity. We don't always try, something new just to be the best. Sometimes we try it because it's fun. Sometimes we try it because we're curious. Sometimes we try it because we're with friends and we all want to taste that new kombucha. Ooh. And, to help them enjoy the fun of something new, not always the pressure to excel. We have a you must excel culture, and that we see it all the time at camp. It keeps kids from trying things, because unless I'm excellent, I can't even participate. We, last Christmas, our family went with this family, and we all learned to surf together. All 13 of us, grown-ups and littles, all alike. And everybody got up. It was amazing. But to see our young people who caught it pretty quick and tore it up on the waves, then to stand on the beach and go, good job, Mom, you got up. It wasn't about being excellent. It was about going out and trying. And I will forever be grateful for, I was low on the totem pole of accomplishment, but I still felt really good about myself.
Well, and I think too, you don't have to just do things that you're good at in life. If you like doing something, we should let our kids do the things they like. And you get better. It's like the growth mindset. We always talk about that people didn't start as Olympic athletes. They've been working hard at it for a really long time. So I think we need to probably wrap this up, but a couple quick announcements. So first of all, thank you so much for coming. This is really fun to get to chat with you. I hope it's helpful to you to just hear from kind of a little bit people who are on the other end of the parenting, still in the process of, and we have our ups and downs, and our kids do too, and they're still not perfect, nor are we. And I just want to reassure you that mostly, if you just relax a little bit, usually things turn out pretty well for your kids. I know there's a lot of tension around having to do things a certain way. I really hope this book just gives some ideas and suggestions for just little things you can do to make family life more connected, happier, more fun. But it's certainly not a book that tells you to do or not to do certain things. It's just giving you some ideas and sharing just some little things and tips that I've learned from now 34 years at camp. And I did interview a lot of other camp directors too, including Sara. So there's ideas from a lot of other camps. And so I hope you'll enjoy that. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us today for the podcast, everybody. I hope you enjoyed Sarah's and my conversation about grit. It was so much fun being with the parents at Pegasus School and just getting their wonderful energy as we recorded this live podcast episode. If you'd like to see pictures from the event and get all the show notes and links, visit my website at sunshine-parenting.com and search for episode 85. If you're interested in purchasing a copy of Happy Campers 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults, visit happycampersbook.com for links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers who will be carrying my book. I'll end this episode with a section of my book, Happy Campers 9 Summer Camp Secrets for Raising Kids Who Become Thriving Adults. This is from the Diving Deeper section at the end of Camp Secret number 5, Grit is Grown Outside the Comfort Zone. Each of us is uniquely made with a starting comfort zone point. Observing our kids and how they respond in different situations is an excellent way to get to know how big or small their comfort zone currently is. Once we have that knowledge about our child, it's important that we communicate with the other adults who work with them. Coaches, teachers, school administrators, and camp counselors need to know whether to push or cushion kids. Kids with a very large comfort zone who are rarely scared or uncomfortable need to be pushed to get into their learning zone by trying new, more challenging things. While kids with a very small comfort zone who are anxious need to be gently encouraged to take baby steps towards new tasks. Knowing our own children and communicating with them about their own comfort zone helps them understand that being uncomfortable is part of growing up and that it's okay to be uncomfortable, but that they also need to let people know when they need a break or a moment to regroup so that they don't get into their blackout zone.
This podcast is a proud member of Parents on Demand, a network of high-quality shows for families just like yours. Download our free network app on Apple and Android and listen to your favorite episodes on the go.